So, hello there, and welcome back to yet another Night of the Movies podcast. I'm Spike Knight, and in these podcasts, I talk all things movies and TV, and whatever I want, whenever I want. And in today's podcast, as I reviewed Fellowship of the Ring a couple of days ago, I am continuing my Lord of the Rings reviews with The Lord of the Rings, The Two Towers. But, just before I do that, I should say what I say at the start of every podcast I do, which is, if you are watching this podcast on YouTube, hello to my viewers, but prefer to listen to your podcast on Spotify, well, even look, as you can also listen to this podcast on Spotify at Night of the Movies on that platform, and if you are already listening to this podcast on Spotify, hello there to podcast listeners, then you can also check this podcast out visually on my YouTube channel. Yes, you can watch this podcast on YouTube at Night of the Movies on that platform as well. Likewise, wherever you're watching or listening to this podcast, don't forget to like and subscribe if you enjoy the podcast, of course, and please leave me with some feedback on things to improve on in future podcasts, because there are always things to improve on, and feedback is, as ever, much appreciated. So, let's get into it, shall we? The Lord of the Rings, The Two Towers. First things first, I should say that I do not know the Lord of the Rings books. I haven't read any of the books that these films are based on, so what I'm going off is what I'm seeing in the films. So if I get any of the details wrong, if I get the names of places wrong, or any of the names of characters wrong, I do apologise. All I know is what I've seen in these films. But I want to talk about these films because of how much I love them. And I love The Lord of the Rings, The Two Towers. It is simply one of the best sequels of all time. And just before I get into more details as to why I think that, you might be noticing today that I'm actually wearing I'm wearing a Lord of the Rings, the One Ring prop. And in my last podcast on the Fellowship of the Ring, in my podcast on that film, I had this Lord of the Rings, the One Ring prop, but this one doesn't fit around my neck because I've got such a big head, whilst this one does, but this isn't actually mine. This is my brother's. I got it him for Christmas because he's also a big Lord of the Rings fan, and then when I went to go and get one for myself after Christmas, they were all sold out. Clearly people get them as Christmas presents. So I haven't got one for myself, but I actually took this one from his room for this review today. Only for this review, of course. I'm not taking it for anything else whatsoever. But yes, I decided to wear this ring for this review today because I want to wear a One Ring in all of my Lord of the Rings and Hobbit reviews. And I didn't in my Fellowship review. I had my One Ring that doesn't fit around my neck. I had that in my Fellowship review, but I did not have this one in my Fellowship review, and I knew I had to get one, so that's exactly why I'm wearing this today. It's not mine, so it may not appear in my Return of the King review, but, it's here today, which is good enough. Anyway, going back onto what I was saying, I love this film so much, and what I love about it, one of the main reasons I love it, is that it is a very different film than Fellowship of the Ring. Fellowship of the Ring is action-packed. It throws you into the world of Middle-earth, it introduces you all these characters in these beautiful ways, and it's a remarkable piece of cinema Fellowship of the Ring is. It's absolutely extraordinary. Even watching it now, there is nothing which is quite compared to the feeling you have watching Fellowship of the Ring for the first time, or the feeling you have rewatching it for the 500th time, like I did in the cinema last year. And then you go on to Two Towers, and Two Towers, although it has some extraordinary moments, particularly the Battle of Helm's Deep, and when you see Gandalf fighting the Balrog and the Warg scene, although it has some visually extraordinary moments and some action-packed moments still, it's not the same kind of film. It's more of a character-driven film. It's more of an emotion-driven film. And I would actually argue that it's more of a war film. Fellowship of the Ring is more of a quest. That's more of a quest film, and they're going on an adventure, and it's one of the greatest adventure films ever. It's unbeatable. But Two Towers is more of a war film. You really see the dark side of Middle-earth, and you get to see how Sauron is taking over, how Sauron and his armies and Saruman, his puppets, Sauron's puppet Saruman, are taking over Middle-earth, and it's absolutely extraordinary seeing this different side to Middle-earth, because in the first film we do see the dark side to Middle-earth to a certain degree, sure, but this film really focuses on it and shows you the power of Saruman and his army and the power of what they are doing. And the whole film, to me, is about hope. It's about hope being lost, and then it's about hope being regained at the end of the film. Particularly when Gandalf shows up, Gandalf the White, should I say, shows up at the Battle of Helm's Deep with the Lost Riders of Rohirrim, if I get my details correct there. He shows up at the Battle of Helm's Deep, and he goes, King Theodon rides alone. And then Carl Urban's character, I think he's called Eomer, apologies if I got the name wrong there, he says, he is not alone. And then they ride down and they save Aragorn, King Theoden, Legolas, Gimli, and all the soldiers of Rohan fighting at Helm's Deep. They save them from dying. And that moment, even when I think of it now, it gives me goosebumps. It's one of the greatest moments in cinema history, that when they show up at the Battle of Helm's Deep, and I'm getting a bit emotional thinking about it now. It's simply incredible. And then as the finale of the film goes on, you get the last march of the Ents, and the Ents are taking down Isengard and fighting against Sauron, and not Sauron, sorry, Saruman. It's, oh my god, I love all the stuff with the Ents taking down Isengard. And then you get Samwise Gamgee's speech about the tales that really matter, and that there is good in this world and it's worth fighting for. And the way Howard Shore's musical score swells during that speech is perfection, you know. I can't think of it off the top of my head right now, but I thought of it just before I started singing, and then I wasn't really going anywhere with it, but you get the point I'm making. I love the way the musical score plays throughout that speech, and the whole finale of Two Towers, the last hour of this film, is perfect. I think the whole film is perfect, to be honest, but that last hour is like it's the way everything comes together is it simply makes me speechless. I don't have words to describe the feeling that the finale of Two Towers gives me. It really is something special. Plus, I love the world building of this film. I love how expansive and epic the world of Middle-earth looks in the Fellowship of the Ring. It's really something special. And it's genius how Peter Jackson and his crew, you know, created and immersed into the world of Middle-earth in that first Lord of the Rings film, and with all these meticulously designed sets and production design, which is so mesmerising, and the way that Peter Jackson and his crew also used the scenery and the landscapes of New Zealand as the background, as the setting for Middle-earth, and the way you see all the Fellowship walking along all these beautiful and dreamlike landscapes in Fellowship of the Ring is some of the most breathtaking shots I have seen. And then that's continued in Two Towers when you see Edoras and Rohan. You know, when you see Rohan for the first time, and you get the Howard Shore's heroic score in the background for Rohan, you know, ba-da-dum, bum, 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 bum. I mean, just even though my rendition of the theme is awful, just me singing it now gives me goosebumps. Just it gets me in the feels so much, and it's got a perfect musical score, this film. It really does, and I will go on to the musical score in more detail a bit later, but the way that the visuals marries up with the musical score in this film is perfect, and the scenery is extraordinary, and the world building, as I was saying before, not only with Rohan but also with Helm's Deep, as we see later on in the film, and then with Fangorn Forest. I love all that scenery. I love all this stuff with the Ents, which I'll talk about later in this review, and also you get to see Osgiliath, where we meet Faramir, Boromir's brother, and all that stuff. I love the world building of this film, and how it makes Middle-earth feel more epic and grand, and makes the story feel more epic. I love all that stuff, and I love also how we get to spend more time with these characters, the characters that we got to know in Fellowship of the Ring. And something I think is particularly well done in this film is that all the Fellowship of the Ring are separated. The Fellowship has separated at the end of Fellowship of the Ring, and now they're all in their own little groups, all in their own cliques, We see Aragorn with Legolas and Gimli, Merry and Pippin together, Frodo and Sam are together, and Gandalf the White comes into contact with Merry and Pippin and Aragorn, Legolas and Gimli throughout the film. And I really love how when we see all these characters separated, though, we see the power of them all. We see the power of them all when they're not with each other, because we see the power of the Fellowship in Fellowship of the Ring in so many moments. And then in this film, though, it's kind of like Empire Strikes Back, which is also the second film and one of the best trilogies of all time. The original Star Wars trilogy, and it's Empire Strikes Back is my second favourite film of all time, and Two Towers is up there in my favourite films of all time. As I said in my Fellowship of the Ring review, I don't think of the Lord of the Rings films separately. I think of them as one entity. They're in my top 10 favourite films of all time, but they're like number 5, and I'd say that, my 5th favourite film of all time is the Lord of the Rings trilogy. I don't say my 5th favourite film of all time is Two Towers or anything like that, because for me, they're all just perfect, and so it'd be weird to rank them individually. But going back onto what I was saying, Two Towers, much like Empire Strikes Back, separates these characters, and then it shows the power of them and how they're all individually trying to take down the evil of Middle-earth. And I love all that about it. I love how we get to see all these characters away from one another, and we get to see them have their own moments to shine throughout this film. The storyline which I'm always impressed with every single time I watch this film, and I've seen this film about 500 times. The storyline I'm always impressed with is Merry and Pippin's storyline, because in the first film you think they might be a liability. You think they're not going to be anything particularly important. Actually, might hinder the quest that these main characters are on. And then you get to Two Towers, though, and they become incredibly important. And one of my favourite lines of dialogue in all 3 films is between Merry and Pippin, where they haven't managed to convince Treebeard, and I'll get onto Treebeard very, very shortly in this podcast, but they haven't managed to convince Treebeard to help them take down Saruman and to take down Isengard. So Pippin has given up trying to convince the Ents to help defeat Saruman, and it's talking about going back to the Shire with all of its benefits, as he feels like him and Merry can't do anything in this world. It's not their place to fight for Middle-earth. Then Merry turns around to Pippin and says something on the lines of, all that was great and good in this world will soon be gone. There won't be a Shire if Saruman wins. And that moment in the film always catches me off guard and always makes it always makes me gasp a little, because I'm like, oh wow, yes, that's so brilliant. It's character development which is marvellous, and it fits so well with the narrative, and then the way you see the Ents storyline come together, and the way you see them defeat Isengard, It's breathtaking, and I love that. I was obsessed with the Ents growing up. I was obsessed with Treebeard. I've even got a Treebeard Funko Pop back there. I don't know if you saw it in the background of this video. I've got my Treebeard Funko Pop over there. Yeah, I love the Ents in this film, and growing up, I was obsessed with them. I was obsessed with Treebeard. I wanted to see Treebeard in Return of the King. I mean, if you watch the extended edition, he is in that film, but only briefly. And I want to see so much of him because I love the design work, and I love how real Treebeard looks. It's a talking tree in the end. When you boil everything down, it's a talking tree, but you believe in it, and you can't help but love it. At least I can, and I'm watching it, and I'm enthralled by everything Treebeard is saying. And I love the fact that John Rhys-Davies voices Treebeard, because John Rhys-Davies also plays Gimli, and I love the fact that John Rhys-Davies has two roles in the film, because I love John Rhys-Davies as Gimli. Gimli is probably my favourite character in all three films, because I love how he pokes fun at all these situations and provides some comedic relief in a lot of dark moments, particularly in the Battle of Helm's Deep, where Legolas says to him, "Do you want a box?" because he can't see over the battlements at Helm's Deep. One of my favourite moments in the entire trilogy as well. But yeah, going back on what I was saying, I love how John Rhys-Davies has two roles in this film, and I didn't even know that until a couple of years ago. I didn't even realise, even so it says in the credits of Return of the King, that John Rhys-Davies plays two characters when all the illustrated drawings come up. And by the way, I've got Return of the King on my mind because I recently just watched it like a couple of days ago. So yeah, I got that probably more on my mind than Two Towers, I will admit. But anyway, even so it says in the credits of Return of the King that John Rhys-Davies plays two characters, I did not realise it until a couple of years back. And it makes perfect sense. And when I was watching some behind the scenes in Two Towers the other day, and you see John Rhys-Davies reading the part of Treebeard, whilst the actors who play Merry and Pippin do the scene with Treebeard, so they can actually talk back to what he's saying without there being any awkward pauses. And John Rhys-Davies was reading the lines of Treebeard in an Hawaiian shirt. It was like perfect, just perfect. You know, I love Treebeard so much. You know, don't be hasty. Oh, I can't do a Treebeard impression to save my life, but I mean, I love that character, and I love in this film how we get to meet all these new characters. I mean, not only Treebeard, who I spoke about at length there, but also the likes of King Theodon. Love that character, and he's brilliantly played by Bernard Hill. I really love how in the first hour to about 90 minutes of Two Towers, maybe just under an hour, maybe it's just under an hour, we see King Theodon is not the person he used to be. Then Gandalf the White, Aragorn, Legolas and Gimli storm into Edoras in Rohan, the capital of Rohan, and they bring back King Theodon into being the person he once was. And that moment always stuns me, just the way it's done. I'm just thinking about it now, it gives me goosebumps. So many moments in these films give me goosebumps, and so many moments in Two Towers. I mean, they just make me smile, and they make my day better when I think about them. Aeowyn, I love that character, and I love how she develops throughout Two Towers and into Return of the King. Eomer, I've already mentioned, he's played by Carl Urban. Really like that character, and again, really like him as his series progresses. Faramir, I really like how we get to meet Boromir's brother in this film, and in the extended edition, which is the definitive version, by the way. I don't care what anybody says, the definitive version is the extended version. In the extended edition, we get to see a scene between Faramir, Boromir, and Denethor. Yes, Boromir returns in the extended edition of Two Towers. Although it is only a flashback. He does not come back from the dead and die again. No, it's only a flashback. Although it's a flashback which I think is very important to the narrative of all three Lord of the Rings films, because even so Denethor isn't in the original cut of this film as far as I'm aware, he's a father of Faramir and Boromir, he plays a vital role in Return of the King, and having him in this film sets that up. Having that moment when you see how much love Boromir has for Faramir, and how Faramir gets treated badly by his father, and how Denethor likes Boromir far more than Faramir. Just seeing that relationship, it's only like a 5-minute scene, but seeing that relationship makes it makes Return of the King make more sense. If you follow my thinking, it makes the relationship between Denethor and Faramir make more sense. And that scene between Boromir, that flashback scene between Boromir, Faramir and Denethor in the extended edition of this film is very, very good. Even if you don't want to watch the extended edition, just watch that scene on YouTube. I think it's on YouTube for certain. I'd be surprised if it isn't. And I really love that moment because it just adds another layer of meaning to Return of the King, you know? And I was shocked when I heard that wasn't in the original cut. I mean, maybe Peter Jackson shot it after the original cut came out. He did do that with a couple of the extended bits. He did shoot them after the original cuts came out because the extended editions came out like a year later after the original cuts released in the cinemas. So maybe that's what happened. But I know this film was like 3 hours, the original cut was. I think you could have just added the scene in and it would have added more to the film. And I think people would have also enjoyed seeing Boromir back because, I mean, I love seeing Boromir back. I think Sean Bean plays him so well, and seeing a different side to Boromir before the One Ring starts to possess him, I think is very interesting, and we get to see that in the extended edition of Two Towers. Also, I really like the addition of Grima Wormtongue, played brilliantly by Brad Dourif. I really like his addition, and I like how he's the reason King Theodon has been growing ill and is not nowhere near the person he once was. And then he goes back to Isengard, he goes back to Saruman because Saruman is his master. And when you see him look out into the armies of Uruk-hai in one of the most, again, breathtaking shots in cinema history, when you see him look out onto the armies of Uruk-hai and he sheds a tear, it's such an impactful moment because Peter Jackson never explains why Wormtongue sheds a tear in that moment. Even so, Wormtongue is not a nice character. He sheds a tear in that moment, and it's almost like you're meant to feel sympathy for him. Or maybe it's like Wormtongue has finally realised that evil has won, or at least he thinks evil is going to win as he sees these armies of Uruk-hai ready to take down the men, the elves, the dwarves, the hobbits, and all the people and all the things that live in Middle-earth. When he sees that it's a small moment, and it's a moment where it's almost like a blinking and you'll miss it thing, but it's something which I always remember about these films. It's that one moment where Wormtongue looks over into the armies of Uruk-hai and he sheds a tear, while Saruman is standing just there. Love that character. I've already spoken about the addition of Treebeard in the film. Love him to pieces. And then you get probably the most memorable addition to the Lord of the Rings films, the most memorable new character, and that is Gollum, aka Smeagol, played by Andy Serkis. Andy Serkis became one of my favourite actors after I saw Two Towers, and I loved it even more after I saw Return of the King. I think Andy Serkis is even better as Gollum in Return of the King. Need I say more about how much I love the character of Gollum? I mean, it's a horrible character, but it's one of those characters you love to hate. And the way they made Gollum look, the motion capture technology used to bring Gollum to life is astounding. Still today, I don't understand how they did it. They pushed the boundaries with cinema. They pushed the boundaries of cinema with these films, and Gollum is a very big exemplification of that. It's a big example of how these films are pushing the boundaries and how they were doing something that hadn't been done before. And the way Andy Serkis plays Gollum and brings life to that character, because he could have just been the CGI character, which wasn't done by motion capture technology, and it wouldn't have the same effect. But because Andy Serkis plays him in this way, like, my precious, I can't do a Gollum impression to save my life, but still, the way he plays that character, fan-fucking-tastic. I don't swear on these podcasts, but I swore just then because I'm astounded by it. Because I watched this from behind the scenes of Two Towers the other day, and I got to the bit where they explained how they did Gollum, and it made no sense to me because Andy Serkis is wearing this rubbery suit whilst acting alongside Elijah Wood, who plays, Frodo, and Sean Astin, who plays Samwise. He's acting alongside them two in the scene, and then he has to do the exact same acting in this motion capture room, and then that's how they make it work. I don't know. Maybe I completely misunderstood what I saw in the special features. But, I don't know how they did it. And it really did change cinema, because after Lord of the Rings films, you had motion capture technology in the latest Planet of the Apes films with Andy Serkis again, because he played Caesar, the main ape, in those films. Also, we had in that Warcraft film, it's been used loads in the MCU and loads in superhero movies in general. And then it was used again in The Hobbit, because, Gollum made a reappearance there. And also, Andy Serkis did motion capture technology again with Peter Jackson, again, for Peter Jackson's King Kong, which came out in 2005, because, as I spoke about in my King Kong review just before Christmas, Andy Serkis played King Kong in that film. And I think it really does change things, when motion capture technology is used. And I think a lot of what makes Gollum such a compelling and yet unlikable but hard to look away from character is through Andy Serkis' performance. Love that character. Also, I love how Gandalf the White isn't the same character as Gandalf the Grey in this film, but he sort of is. From what I understand, he's not exactly the same character, but I love how Sir Ian McKellen, should I say, I love how he plays him slightly differently. You still see a bit of Gandalf in there, but he's not the same Gandalf. He's more stoic, and he shows he's more angry, Although at the same time, though, is he actually? I'm not. Actually, I don't know if he is more angry, because Gandalf the Grey is quite angry. He's got quite a few moments in Fellowship of the Ring where he has a go at some of the hobbits, where he shouts quite a few times. And there's that one moment in the Mines of Moria where he shouts at Pippin because Pippin may have just woken up the goblins in the Mines of Moria. And there's not really any moments like that with Gandalf the White in this film. I love how Ian McKellen plays him slightly differently, though. He plays him differently, and I do think it adds something to the film. And I love the imagery surrounding Gandalf the White. I looked up before doing this review today, the colour white signifies the new, the beginning. And whenever Gandalf the White pops in this film, he's not actually in this film a lot. He's not in this film nearly as much as I thought he was on a rewatch. Whenever he pops in this film, it's when hope is starting to be re-established. It's when hope is starting to seep in again. It's being lost whenever Gandalf the White isn't in this film, but whenever he comes into it, hope is back. Hope is coming back. And it's just so... Oh, I love that. I love that imagery. We don't see Gandalf the White much, but whenever we do, we know that there's still hope in Middle-earth. And then when you see him show up at the Battle of Helm's Deep, you know that the soldiers of Rohan and that King Theodon and Aragorn, Gimli and Legolas are saved from being killed by the Uruk-hai. And going on to Helm's Deep. Perfect. It is simply one of the best battles, if not the best battle in cinematic history. Yes, it's definitely one of the best fantasy battles in cinematic history for sure. I might say that, I think the Battle of Minas Tirith in Return of the King is ever so slightly better, but the Battle of Helm's Deep is extraordinary, though. It's absolutely phenomenal what Peter Jackson and his team did with that battle. The Helm's Deep castle is a set within itself. That is shocking to me. I did not realise that. I genuinely thought it was a castle in New Zealand that you can go and visit. No, it's just a set that Peter Jackson and his crew who worked in this film, this crew who were absolutely incredible. If you watch the behind the scenes features, you really see how much work and passion and love went into this film. You can feel that when you watch it, and the fact that Helm's Deep was a set still shocks me, and it shocks me in the best way. And the whole Battle of Helm's Deep is emotionally riveting. It's intense. It's exciting, and it's incredible. I mean, just thinking about it now, it renders me speechless. I read somewhere, and I can't remember where I read it, but I read somewhere that it took Peter Jackson and his crew and everybody who worked on the Battle of Helm's Deep, it took them 3 months to shoot the battle. It was 2 months at night and 1 month in the daytime. That is something which I can't even begin to comprehend. I mean, I don't like the idea of shooting at night in a film in general, night shoots. I don't like the idea of them. God knows how painful it must have been for some of the actors who were who were there on camera in the Helm's Deep battle. God knows how difficult it must have been for Viggo Mortensen or John Rhys-Davies or Orlando Bloom as Legolas. God knows how difficult it must have been for them when they're shooting at night for 2 months. I mean, they may not have they may not have shot at night for every day for 2 months straight, sure, but still, and it pays off. It really does. It really pays off, because what's so brilliant about the battle is how you're following all these different characters that you've been emotionally aligned with beforehand. I heard somewhere, and again I don't know how true it is because I heard it off the internet, and the internet isn't always true, but I heard somewhere that apparently when Peter Jackson and his team initially cut to the Battle of Helm's Deep, it was 20 hours long, and there was a lot of footage which was good, but just wasn't that interesting, wasn't that engaging, because you weren't following the characters that we've grown to know and love from the first Lord of the Rings film and into this film, up to this point in Two Towers. So they cut it down significantly, so we're following these characters, and we kept following these characters, and I do think it provides a much greater effect when you see how much Aragorn wants to save and protect the people of Rohan. When you see Legolas trying to shoot down that one Uruk-hai, I mean, it's simply phenomenal what Peter Jackson and his crew did. Also, though, I heard somewhere that Arwen was meant to be in the Battle of Helm's Deep, though. I heard that she was meant to be in the Battle of Helm's Deep. Arwen played wonderfully by Liv Tyler. She was meant to appear in the Battle of Helm's Deep and fight alongside Aragorn, Legolas and Gimli, and they even shot a lot of scenes with Tyler, with Tyler, God, what am I saying? With Liv Tyler at the Battle of Helm's Deep set, but they weren't included in the final cut of the film, in any of the cuts, and not even in the extended edition. Because actually, if you look up online, and if you don't believe me, go and do this after you watch this podcast, of course, or listen to this podcast. There's a lot of unreleased footage from all 3 Lord of the Rings films that weren't included on the extended edition. The extended editions are quite long, yeah, and they include a lot of extra footage, but there's a lot in the extended editions there's a lot of stuff which wasn't included in the extended editions, what I was meant to say. There's a lot of stuff which wasn't in the extended editions, and somebody online has composed a video which is about 1 hour and 16 minutes. God knows how they did it. It's a really amazing job what they did. They composed this video online of all the bits of evidence of footage they could find that weren't included in the Lord of the Rings, in any Lord of the Rings cuts, whether it was the original cuts or extended cuts. And there's a section of that video which shows that Liv Tyler was training for the battle sequences at Helm's Deep, and that Liv Tyler as Arwen was shooting some scenes alongside Viggo Mortensen as Aragorn, Orlando Bloom as Legolas, and John Rhys-Davies as Gimli in the sequences at the Battle of Helm's Deep. And even so, when I watch the Battle of Helm's Deep, I don't miss Arwen. I don't think, oh God, where's Arwen during these sequences? I would like to see a cut of Arwen at the Battle of Helm's Deep. I would like to see that one day. Maybe it'll come out, maybe it won't. But it's interesting to think that Arwen had a bigger role to play in these films. And that's why I would have liked to see it, to be honest, because even though I really like the character of Arwen and I really like her romance with Aragorn, that's all she really has to do in these films. And although, again, I think it works well, showing her doing more than just having this romance with Arwen, having this romance with Aragorn, I think would have added more to that character and maybe would have made their relationship, I don't know, more interesting when you see them fight alongside each other. Not saying that definitely would have happened if she was included in any of the cuts of Two Towers, but I don't know, it could have done something. And I would have liked to see that. Maybe we will. Maybe when we get to the 30th anniversary of the Lord of the Rings films, when we get to the 30th anniversary of Two Towers, they will re-release the film with even more footage. They will do another extended edition. Maybe they will, maybe they won't. But I'm hoping they do. I'm hoping they do, and I'm hoping that that second extended edition has the cut of Arwen at the Battle of Helm's Deep, because I personally want to see that. I want to see what she does there. And I want to see what she's like fighting alongside Aragorn. Because in the end, those two characters are in love, and it gives her more to do in the trilogy than just be in love with Aragorn. She might have more to do in the books, but again, I haven't read the books. All I'm going off is what I know in these films. I mean, there's so much I can say about that I haven't said already. I mean, I mentioned early on that it does feel like a war film. It really does to me. You know, when you see this dark side of Middle-earth, and the first film feels more like a quest film, this film feels more like a war film, and when Return the King, I think it's completely its own beast, and I'll get onto that shortly in the next couple of days. But the thing is, with this film, it really does feel like a war film to me, because of the way everything's done. You know, war films often have a lot of the character moments, and often it feels like a war story. That's what I'm trying to say there. Maybe not a war film, but a war story. And I think a lot of that is down to Tolkien's writing, because although I'm not somebody who is particularly familiar with Tolkien, apparently he did serve in World War II. He did not serve in the military, but he did contribute to the war effort in other ways, according to Google. For example, he worked as an air raid warden and helped to evacuate children from London during the Blitz. Tolkien's main focus during the war was on his work as a professor and his writing, but he did help people during the Blitz. And I do think that shows in these three films, but particularly in the Two Towers. I think that comes through. I'm not going to go into detail as to why I think that. I'll let people piece that together themselves. But I think you can tell that the narrative and the story of this film is from somebody who has experienced the war, who has experienced a world war. I think the whole film is an allegory for World War II, although Tolkien might not like that, because I also read somewhere on Google that Tolkien does not like allegories. He doesn't like his stories being taken for having another meaning. But I do think it is a war story, though. I do think Two Towers, particularly the way Peter Jackson tells the story of it, feels like a war story. I really think it does. And the film is simply one of the most affecting and breathtaking and emotionally moving films I have ever seen. When you get to the end of Two Towers, I am left emotionally broken by it. Not necessarily broken, but I'm just left completely in awe of what Peter Jackson and his crew and what this film has managed to do to me. I mean, it's 4 hours long, and I do think this one feels more like 4 hours than, say, Fellowship of the Ring feels like 3 hours and 48 minutes if you watch the extended editions, of course, which I definitely think you should. But it doesn't change the fact that I would rewatch this film in an instant, because I think the storytelling and the writing and just everything about this film is compelling and engaging and emotionally riveting. Oh, it's brilliant, because I love how it's not the same film as Fellowship. I love how it's a different look at Middle-earth. It's a look at Middle-earth through the perspective of war, through the perspective of evil, and that evil is coming to take over, and the evil is coming to take over, and that we need to stop it. And I love that about Two Towers. I absolutely love it, and it really is one of the most affecting films I've seen. Because, I mean, when I get to the end of Two Towers, I think to myself, thank God we have another film to watch in this trilogy, because otherwise I would be completely lost right now. You know, it really is magnificent what they did. The production design, the art design, the meticulous art design of this film, you know, just the way King Theoden's armour looks. I mean, I've got this Lego minifigure of King Theoden that I bought about 10 years ago now. And every time I look at it, I go, oh, look at the armour on this Lego minifigure. I mean, it's just, oh God, the art design, the costume design, the production design, everything behind the scenes that was worked on behind the scenes, that is shown on screen and shown the background scenes just looks tactile and incredible, and looks like it's had this meticulous care that has been put into it, and the whole film feels like it's had this passion behind it, and it feels like it's had so much care put into it, and so much thought and so much love, and it's got this heart and soul put into it that I think only really comes across in the production that was behind this film. If you watch the special features, you see the work and the care that went into this film, and you can feel that when it comes off the screen. You can really feel that. And Peter Jackson directing is, again, some of his finest. In fact, it is his finest. This whole trilogy is Peter Jackson directing at his finest. God, I love it. Also, I should say what is included on the extended editions, which I haven't said yet. So, I did already speak about how Boromir returns in a flashback in the extended edition, where you see him in a scene with his brother and his father. Denethor becomes more important in Return of the King. Also, in the extended edition, you see Frodo and Sam at the beginning of the film using this elvish rope that Lady Galadriel gave Sam in the extended edition of Fellowship of the Ring. Also got the name of the first film there. There's a comedic moment that adds some relief to the film when you see that the elvish rope that Sam's using isn't quite as good as he hoped there would be. It adds some levity to the film. There's lots of moments that add levity in the film, like that, which I really love. I really love how, yes, it is a dark film, but there are lots of comedic moments. Another comedic moment is in the extended edition, where you see Merry and Pippin in Fangorn Forest for the first time. They've woken up in Fangorn Forest. They don't really know where they are, but Pippin, I think it's Pippin, ever got the Hobbit right, he's drinking this water and it's making him taller, and then Merry gets jealous of him, and it's this comedic moment that's only in the extended edition, but I think just adds a bit of relief and a bit of levity as to, with everything else going on, you know, with death and destruction and people are dying, the Battle of Helm's Deep. You get the scene in the middle of everything where it's like, oh, having, at least there's some light to be found in this story still, in Middle Earth. Also, before that, there's a scene where Merry and Pippin are being carried by the Uruk-hai to Mordor and are trying to stay alive. You see that Merry is really suffering, and that's early on in the film. Seeing more people of Middle-earth sacrificing themselves for Saruman. You see this guy cut his hand and go, I offer myself to Saruman. It's something like that. It's a really, really great moment where you start to see, well, you see it a lot throughout this film, but it's one of those moments where you start to see Peter Jackson's horror roots, because he was a director who worked in horror cinema before coming into the Lord of the Rings films, where you start to see his roots come through. The orcs want to eat Merry and Pippin alive outside of Fangorn Forest. That moment is really great. They go, I'm not sure if it is in the original cut, actually. I'm not sure, but I found out that all these scenes weren't in the original cut of YouTube. So I don't know if it's certain if these scenes weren't or were. But I've heard the scene wasn't. And it's a really, really good scene. And then Gandalf the White talking to Aragorn about the importance of the secrecy of Frodo's quest to destroy the One Ring, and Aragorn letting Gandalf know that Frodo is not alone. Sam went with him. And I love that moment in the extended edition because Gandalf goes, oh, when he hears that Sam has gone with Frodo, he goes, oh, that's very good. Very, very good. Moments like that which make me love this trilogy so much. Also, King Theoden's son's funeral, which I think is a very emotional scene. A scene between Aragorn and Aeowyn where Aeowyn discusses Aragorn's real age, which I think is very interesting. More scenes with Treebeard, setting the scene of Fangorn Forest. I would take as much footage with Treebeard as there is. I would take hours and hours of footage of Treebeard. I love it all. Merry and Pippin, I've already talked about that one. Seeing the orcs defeated in the forest after the Battle of Helm's Deep. That was not included on the original cut, apparently. That was only included on the extended cut. You see all the orcs run into the forest. It might be Fangorn Forest. I'm not entirely sure what to admit. But they run into the forest after the Battle of Helm's Deep to try and get away from the defeat, but then they all die in the air. But then they all die in the forest, and the assumption being that they all died from the Ents, which finally decided to defeat Isengard, to take down Isengard and take down the orcs. And you see that it got to Helm's Deep, and then after the Battle of Helm's Deep, you all see Gimli sitting on an orc with an axe in its head. And then Legolas shoots the orc and he goes, it was twitching. He says to Gimli, it was twitching. And then Gimli goes, it's twitching because it's got an axe in its head. It's only like a 40-second scene, but I love it. I love that scene. Any more moments with Gimli I can take for days and days on. Merry and Pippin eating food from the Shire after the Ents reclaim Isengard, because apparently there is food from the Shire at Isengard, and you see Merry and Pippin celebrate by eating Shire food, at least you think it's Shire food, at Isengard after they took back Isengard, and that's a moment which I really love. And then Frodo, Sam and Gollum leaving Osgiliath, leaving Faramir, and Gollum being threatened by Faramir if he does anything to Frodo. And that moment I think is really important, showing that Faramir now trusts these two hobbits. He now trusts Frodo and Sam, and he doesn't want anything to happen to them. He doesn't want anything to happen to them because he understands the importance of their quest. I think the extended edition adds a lot more to the film. And if it's true, and I don't know if it is, that all these scenes were cut from the original cut, I don't know. I don't know if I could ever watch the original cut. Because I did say this in my review of Fellowship of the Ring, that I have ever only known the extended editions of these films. I don't know the original cuts. I grew up watching the extended editions. To be honest, it was only a couple of years ago when I realised that the extended editions weren't the original cuts. So I don't know what... It was, it was only a couple of years ago when I realised that the extended editions weren't the theatrical editions. So I don't know what it'd be like for me. I think it'd be a very jarring and frustrating viewing experience watching the theatrical editions now, and seeing all that was lost, because all the extended stuff adds more to story, and it makes the experience of these films far more rich, and it makes the experience of Two Towers far more enthralling and encapsulating, and I don't even know if that's the right word to use there, but it just makes it more of an experiential viewing, It makes Two Towers more of an experience, and it makes and the extended parts of Fellowship of the Ring make it more of an experience, and the extended parts of Return of the King make that film more of an experience. Yes, the extended editions of Two Towers make the film 4 hours long, but I don't care. And I should also say that the extended editions do include the names of everybody who contributed on the OneRing.net to this film, because it was crowdfunded. Apparently, according to my mom, So I don't know how true this is because it's from her, but it was one of the first crowdfunded films ever. One of the first big crowdfunded films like that. One of the big crowdfunded films. I don't know how true that is because, again, it's from my mom. But still, you know, and you do see that in all the credits. So the credits, I think, are like 20 minutes long in themselves. So maybe a lot of that extended stuff, maybe it isn't actually quite as long as it seems. Maybe the extended edition of Two Towers is actually more like 3 hours and a half, because if you take away all the credits. But still, I really do think that if you haven't watched the extended editions of Two Towers and you're big fans of theatrical editions, then check them out. I would urge you to check them out because it adds more of an experiential feel to these films, and it adds more detail to the story, and I'm telling you, it makes for a better viewing experience. It really does. These films feel like experiences when you watch the extended editions, and I mean that in the best way possible. It feels like, when I watched in the cinema last year, it felt like I watched the experience of Lord of the Rings. You know, it felt like I bought a ticket to watch the experience of the Lord of the Rings, The Two Towers. I watched all 3 films back to back in the cinema over one night last year, and we finished this film at about 3 a.m. and I was completely blown away by it, and I still am now. It's, you know, it's a film which gets better with age, in my opinion. It's a film which has really grown on me as well, because I didn't love Two Towers growing up. I'm not sure if I mentioned that already, but I didn't love Two Towers growing up, and I love it so much now because of the way it's written. It's a character-driven story. The first film is like, look, it's Middle-earth. Look how amazing Peter Jackson's filmmaking is. He doesn't just make a film, he makes a movie. And Two Towers feels more like Peter Jackson showing a very different side. Peter Jackson and his crew, don't forget his crew, because they were all playing a vital role in this film. Peter Jackson and his crew making a different, showing a different perspective of Middle-earth, and in doing so, providing arguably a better film. That's up for debate. I don't really think which one is better, which one is worse. I don't think of these films like that, because for me, they're all one entity. When I say my top 10 favourite films of all time, Lord of the Rings is 5. But arguably this is a better film than Fellowship. Fellowship may be more entertaining, but arguably this is a better film. I love it. And it's got one of the best battles, if not the best battles, if not the best battle, should I say, in cinematic history in it. What else do you want? It's simply one of the most affecting and breathtaking pieces of cinema I have ever seen, and I love the Lord of the Rings, the Two Towers, 2 pieces. And so for that reason, I am easily going to give this film a 10 out of 10. There is not a single thing I'll change about it. My only nitpick, and it's a really small nitpick, is towards the end of the Battle of Helm's Deep, King Theodon, Aragorn, Legolas and Gimli all ride out on horses into the Battle of Helm's Deep. Into the battle. And I'm sitting there thinking, great moment, love that moment. It's one of my favourite moments ever, when they ride off into the battle and Gandalf the White shows up on the hill, ready to save them with the Lost Riders who are here. It's one of my favourite moments in cinema history. However, where the hell did they get the horses from? Where the hell did King Theodon, Aragorn and the rest of them get the horses from? That has never been explained to me. Maybe it's in that really long cut of Helm's Deep, which Peter Jackson has kept hidden in a safe somewhere. But, you know, I don't know. It's just, I don't know where the horses came from. It's a small nitpick, that. And I was just watching it thinking, I was watching it for like the 500th time the other day thinking, where did they get them from? Like, it's just a small thing there, and I have a small nitpick like that in Return of the King too, but honestly, really don't care about it though, because the feeling that this film gives me, the feeling that Fellowship gives me, is different than the film. It's different than the feeling that this film gives me. Love that about it. I just love everything about this film. The acting, the musical score, which is perfect once again from Howard Shore. I didn't really speak about the musical score too much, but Gollum song leading into the end credits, perfect. The whole musical score for this film with Rohan's theme, you know, bum 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 bum. Love that. Also love the theme that's used for the Battle of Helm's Deep, the way it all builds up in the score when the battle is beginning. God, Howard Shore just did such an amazing job with the musical score for this film. It's simply amazing. The musical score in itself. It's one of those musical scores you can listen to without watching the film, and it takes you back to the visuals in the film. The visuals themselves, you know, it's a film which is gorgeous to look at, visually stunning. The characters are so well written, the character development is also well done. The film has so much passion and care put into it, and you feel that, and it is a simply extraordinary piece of cinema that to me feels like a war film, and to me is one of the most affecting and emotionally moving films I've ever seen. It is amazing, and I've spoken at length about how much I love it, and I really think the extended edition for this film adds another layer to the story. You know, there's no going back after seeing the extended edition of this film, because it makes it into more of an experience, and I always think the best films feel like an experience, and this film really feels like an experience. Oh, it really does. One of the best sequels of all time, without a doubt. And so, all in all, as we said, I'm going to say once more that The Lord of the Rings, The Two Towers, is a 10 out of 10 from me. Anyway, guys, that's it for today's podcast. Sorry about how long I've been going on. Man Live, almost been going on an hour. Did not expect to go on that long for this film today. So apologies if I have rambled on a bit, but that's what happens when I love a film. I just ramble on and on and on. But nevertheless, guys, thank you for watching or listening to this podcast. And please let me know your thoughts on The Lord of the Rings, The Two Towers. Maybe it's your least favourite of the Lord of the Rings trilogy. Maybe it's your favourite of the Lord of the Rings trilogy. Whatever your thoughts are, let me know in that comment section below. And if you haven't yet, please click down below and like and subscribe on this podcast. And thank you for watching or listening. I'm not sure I've already said that, so I'm going to say it once more as well. Thank you so much for watching or listening to this podcast, and I will see you guys again soon. But bye for now. Bye.